This happened when I was 22 years old, working as a bartender at a small dive bar a few blocks from my apartment. It was by no means a fancy place, just a spot where locals would come to get late-night drinks or watch whatever sports games were on. I started recognizing regular customers quickly. A lot of them were older guys who came in multiple times per week. After my shifts, I usually walked home because my apartment was so close, and sometimes I would have a couple shots with customers near closing, so driving was not smart. The walk only took about 7 minutes, and I had done it so many times that I never felt scared before this incident. There was one regular who always made me uncomfortable though. His name was Jared, and I only knew this from his credit card. He looked around late 30s, maybe 38. He had thinning hair and always wore the same brown jacket, no matter the weather. He never came in with friends. He would sit at the bar alone and try to talk to me the entire time, showing no interest in the sports games playing. But he would usually show up later at night when the bar was less crowded. He would ask personal questions sometimes, and I always kept my answers short and tried to stay polite, because that is part of the job. But I was careful to avoid encouraging him or giving him the wrong idea. One Friday night, Jared came in like usual around 10. He nursed one beer for almost an hour and just watched me while I worked. It was not like he was intensely staring the entire time, but I would constantly catch him glancing my direction, and he would look away when I noticed. Almost every time I walked past, he tried to start a conversation. Near the end of his drink, he asked if I wanted to hang out sometime outside of work, like on a date. I told him clearly I was not interested and that I like to keep my work and personal life separate. His expression changed dramatically right away. He forced a fake smile, threw cash on the bar, and said, "Yeah, whatever." Then he left without leaving a tip, which he had never done before. I remember feeling relieved he was gone, but also uneasy about how fast his mood shifted after I rejected him. My shift ended at midnight. The other bartender came in to take over, and I counted my tips, grabbed my hoodie, and headed out the front door. The street was quiet like it usually was that late. I had just turned onto the next block when I suddenly heard someone say my name. It made my stomach drop. I turned and saw Jared standing near a lamp post. I had not even heard him walk up, which made it more frightening. He gave me a small wave and started walking toward me. I stopped but kept some distance. He apologized for storming out earlier and said he just gets nervous around people he likes. I told him it was fine, but that I really needed to get home because it was late. He nodded like he understood and said, "I just wanted to ask one more time if I could get your Instagram or Snapchat or something. I promise I will not bother you." I told him I do not use social media. He stared at me for a second, then smiled in a way that made me uncomfortable. He said, "That is weird, because I have actually seen you on Instagram before when you were posting from the bar." My heart started pounding because now he was confronting me and calling me a liar. I had no idea how he knew that. I just said firmly, "Please leave me alone," because he had escalated things beyond what was acceptable. He kept smiling and said, "Okay, have a good night." I turned and started walking again quickly, trying to stay calm. After a few seconds, I thought I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, but when I glanced back, I saw him walking the same direction, about half a block behind. I sped up a little, and he sped up too. I slowed down to test him, and he slowed down as well. It felt like some sick game, like he was programmed to match my walking speed, no matter what I did. I kept walking toward my apartment building, hoping he would turn off somewhere, but he did not. When I reached my building, I crossed the street instead of going to the front door. I wanted to see what he would do. I stopped and turned around. He stopped too. He just stood there under a tree, mostly in shadow. I could not see his face clearly, but I could still somehow tell he was smiling a little. I yelled across the street asking, "Why are you following me? I do not want to have to call out for help." He did not answer. He just stood there completely still and stiff. I blurted out, "My boyfriend lives with me, and I am going inside to get him." That was a lie because I lived alone, but I was desperate. I turned and hurried to the front door as fast as possible. I punched in the entry code with shaking hands. The door buzzed and unlocked for a few seconds. Right as I pulled it open, I heard extremely fast footsteps behind me. I looked back and saw Jared running full speed toward the building entrance. I ran inside and let the door slam shut behind me. I did not wait to see if it latched. I just ran up the stairs to the second floor as fast as I could. My apartment was at the end of the hallway. I could hear the main door downstairs getting pushed open aggressively, then footsteps hitting the stairs hard and fast. He had made it inside. I fumbled with my keys at the door, almost dropping them. I could hear him getting closer, his shoes slamming against each step. I finally got the key in and threw myself inside, slamming the door and locking it just as he reached the hallway. 1 second later, his whole body smashed violently into my door. The impact shook the entire door and wall. I screamed and backed away, grabbing my phone. He hit the door again, even harder, like he was trying to break it down. Then I heard another door open in the hallway and a man's voice yell, "What the hell are you doing?" The banging stopped immediately. There was silence for a second, then footsteps moving away quickly. I looked through the peephole and saw my neighbor, an older man who lived across from me. He was standing in the hallway looking confused and angry. Jared was already halfway down the stairs, not saying a word. My neighbor knocked gently and asked if I was okay. I opened the door a crack, shaking and crying. I told him everything while he stayed in the hallway with me. He said he heard the banging and thought someone was trying to break in. I called the police and they came that night and took everything seriously. I gave them Jared's name from his credit card, and the building owner pulled camera footage showing him running in after me. My boss gave them the bar footage too. The next day, an officer called and told me they had identified him as Jared Perez, and detectives were sending the case to the prosecutor. It would be treated as stalking and unlawful entry because he chased me into the building and tried to force my apartment door open. Hearing those words made everything feel more real, but also slightly reassuring. I went to the courthouse the next day and filed for a restraining order. I had to tell a judge everything that happened, and they looked at the police report and security video. The judge approved a temporary restraining order right away, and police served him with it soon after. I was told the prosecutor was moving forward with charges related to him trying to break into my apartment. I still worked at the bar for a while after that, but I stopped walking home alone at night. Even with the court order and the charges, I felt scared every time I came back to my building. I would check over my shoulder the whole walk and rush inside as fast as I could. Nothing like that ever happened again, but I will never forget this incident. I am a teenager living in a lively coastal town in a country small enough that everyone seems to know everyone. Our town is popular among tourists during summer and becomes quiet during other seasons. The main attraction is this beautiful beach that stretches for kilometers down to these sand dunes that are perfect for scenic walks. The hills within the dunes are easy to get lost in, but also easy to make your way out of, because if you walk a kilometer in any direction, you end up back on the beach or the main path to the car park. The walk from this car park takes around 15 to 20 minutes at good pace, so you are never truly isolated. During daytime, you will always see families with young children taking strolls or somebody walking their dog. My point is that the sand dunes are known to be completely safe during daylight, and if you get lost while exploring them, you should not panic at all. This story takes place a few weeks after school started back up, so our town was quieter and evenings were growing darker earlier. My friends and I are part of the local scout group. Our group is divided into 4 age groups: Beavers for ages 5 to 8, Cubs for 9 to 12, Scouts for 12 to 15, and Ventures for 16 to 18. We meet every Thursday evening from 7 until 9. Whether meetings are inside or outside depends on the time of year. On this particular night, it was the Scouts' first meeting after summer break. As per tradition, we met at the car park by the walking path to the sand dunes. The Scouts would walk down together to explore. We always have older scouts hike up the biggest dune first, then the newer scouts, the 12-year-olds, follow behind. The older scouts help the younger ones reach the top. When they make it to the summit, they are officially considered true scouts. So the scouts set off while me and the other aid ventures stayed behind to practice first aid for about 45 minutes. We did well, and afterward decided we had time to head down to the dunes ourselves and catch up with the scouts. The quicker walkers, which included me, reached the dunes first. The tide was completely in, so we could not walk along the beach to reach the biggest dune, which everyone calls the Baldy Man. Instead, we walked through the other smaller hills. My friend Noah and I were set on reaching the scouts, who had all made it to the top of the Baldy Man. We shouted back to our group leader and other ventures to tell them our plan. 2 others, Thomas and Yuan, decided to join us. The rest stayed behind at checkpoints so we could find our way back safely. So me, Noah, Thomas, and Yuan took off into the nearly pitch-black dunes, tripping and falling all over. We went up and down hills while scraping our legs on sharp grass and occasional brambles. The moon illuminated the scouts' silhouettes in the distance, but they were much further than we thought. We stopped to rest on a ridge, and when we looked back, we saw 2 other ventures looking our direction. We waved and they waved back. I was closing my water bottle, getting ready to run again, when Thomas suddenly shushed us. He looked mildly concerned at first, then shrugged it off. We asked why he shushed us, and he said, "Did you hear that?" We shook our heads no, so Thomas explained he thought he heard something rustling in the bushes nearby. We put it down to wind, even though it was a very still night with barely any breeze. After another 10 minutes, we reached the last hill before the scouts' location. We were exhausted but pushed through and made it up. We said hello to our friends and the scouts, welcomed the new scouts, then decided we had to head back because it was now pitch black. And again, none of us had any torch or flashlight. We tumbled back down the big hill, catching our footing on the sand, and began making our way back toward the ventures on that ridge. We ran up and down hills until we could make out the outline of the ridge. They were still there waiting. We felt relieved to see them. Finally, the 4 of us made it up to where they stood. I will call these 2 Cormac and Alice. Cormac is a big guy, muscle-wise, and known in school for his intelligence. He stands about 6 feet 3 inches tall and looks like he could beat up a bear. Alice is a quiet girl but extremely smart, both in schoolwork and social situations. Even without a torch to see clearly, I could see panic on Cormac's face, and Alice was visibly shaking beside him. "What is wrong?" asked Noah, speaking all our minds. Cormac looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Were you just walking around on your own down there in that clearing?" He pointed to a flat area where people sometimes drink or smoke. "No, I have been with the others this whole time." "Why?" I replied, feeling my heart rate increase. I think all of us had the same horrible realization at the same time. We could feel each other's blood run cold. Cormac said he and Alice had seen a man with his hood up, dressed entirely in black, slowly circling that clearing, obviously trying to avoid being seen. They thought it was me at first, but the behavior was way out of character. I was about to speak, but Cormac kept talking. He said when they waved at us from the other ridge, they had not seen this guy yet. But the minute we left that ridge, they saw what they assume is the same guy standing exactly where we had been, looking in the direction we went. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I had constant shivers. Thomas must have heard this person moving in the bushes when we rested on that ridge. The terrifying truth was undeniable. We were being followed through these dark dunes. There is safety in numbers, so all 6 of us made our way down to the clearing where the man was spotted. He did not even have a torch with him, said Alice in a shaky, frightened voice. Cormac and Alice rushed ahead to warn the scout leaders about the dangerous situation, while we 4 stayed back and kept watch over the clearing. They came back quickly after warning the leaders. It was oddly quiet now, much quieter than it should have been. We were terrified that this man dressed in black without any torch, circling the area, and most scary of all, alone in the pitch-black dunes, was going to jump out and attack us. Fortunately, that never happened. We hurried back toward the car park as fast as we could, finding the last 3 ventures and our leader on the way, immediately notifying them. We were nearly out of the dunes when one of the younger scouts suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream, which made all the other scouts start running. Noah and I, leading the walk back, rushed to the child first. The poor kid was in tears and shaking. When we asked what happened, he simply pointed with a trembling finger to my left. There he was, the same mysterious man, now standing on a ridge just staring down at us in silence. Noah told everyone to run because he said he saw a knife in the man's hand glinting in the moonlight. All the ventures grabbed and carried the slower younger children back to the car park, which we assumed was safe. I never saw that man's face clearly that night, and I have no plans on ever finding out who it was. The scouts and ventures were picked up by their parents, and I assume all their parents have their own versions of what happened. But only a handful know the complete story of what we experienced. This happened back in 2017 when I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. I have always been the type of person who prefers staying home. So when my coworker Jenna, who was about 10 years younger than me, started constantly asking me to go out, I kept saying no. She and another girl from work named Mira were relentless though. After weeks of them begging me, I finally agreed. I told Jenna I would join them for a night out the following weekend. As that weekend approached, Jenna showed up at my apartment. She wanted to leave her car at my place and have me drive, which immediately made me anxious. I had been living in St. Pete for 4 years, but I rarely left my neighborhood, so I knew nothing about the nightlife there. The farthest I typically drove was 4 miles to the nearest Walmart. That evening, we got into my car and headed toward Mira's apartment. When we arrived, Mira was not quite ready, so we went inside and waited. Once she was ready, all 3 of us got back into my car. Since I was driving, Jenna had to navigate. We eventually ended up at this really busy nightclub. We went inside, found a spot, and ordered drinks. But here is where things took a dark turn. We had not been there long when Jenna suddenly said, "Hey, I will be right back, because I see someone I know." Then she asked Mira to come with her. I remember feeling this sharp wave of irritation. Why would she beg me for weeks to come out, only to abandon me moments after arriving? But I waited. A few minutes later, Jenna and Mira returned, smiling. Jenna announced that her friend had bought us a round of drinks and handed me a glass. I trusted her because she was my coworker, so I took the drink. I believe her friend bought us 2 rounds each. It was not long after the 3rd drink that something felt horribly wrong. The room was not spinning, but this thick wave of unsettling dread washed over me. I turned to Jenna and told her we needed to leave right now. The next few hours are completely blurred. I do not remember leaving the club, but apparently we did. The first thing I recall clearly is sitting outside Mira's apartment complex in the driver's seat of my car. I could hear Jenna and Mira talking, and whatever they said, something I cannot recall to this day, it instantly triggered my fight or flight response. I did not need to understand the words. My instincts knew I was in danger. Without thinking, I slammed my car into drive and sped away. Whatever had been slipped into my drink was incredibly powerful. I was not a lightweight, and I had only consumed 3 club drinks. I found myself driving all over St. Petersburg, unable to focus, desperately trying to figure out how to get home. But my mind was completely scrambled. At one point, I stopped at a red light. Suddenly, 2 figures appeared at my window, and then someone was pulling my car door open. I was in shock because my car doors automatically locked when I put the vehicle in gear. I still have no idea how they opened that door. 2 strange men were pulling it open, and seeing them snapped me out of the fog just enough to slam the gas and flee. After that terrifying moment, my memory vanishes again. The next thing I remember is sitting in my car parked near quiet homes. I was staring at my phone, trying to figure out how to operate it. But the drug had made me so paranoid and confused that the simplest action felt impossible. I looked around, saw no one, and convinced myself I was safe for the moment. I reclined the seat and fell into a deep drug-induced sleep. I woke around 5 in the morning with the drug wearing off. I was able to use my phone again. I put on GPS and drove straight home, collapsing into bed immediately. I woke again around 11 in the morning to 20 missed calls. Most were from Jenna, but a few from another concerned friend. When I called Jenna back, she sounded frantic, demanding to know where I went. I said, "What do you mean? Your friend spiked my drink, and I was not sticking around to find out what would happen next." That is when Jenna let slip the most chilling line. She said the spiked drinks were not meant for you. That casual admission was all the confirmation I needed that she was involved. She quickly told me she would stop by later to pick up her vehicle. Before Jenna arrived, the memory of those 2 men opening my door returned with jarring clarity. Had it been real or a hallucination? I went outside to check my car, and there it was. The plastic casing of my driver's side door handle was completely missing. Whoever had been holding that handle when I sped away must have ripped it right off. The physical damage confirmed the terror I felt was not a delusion. Someone had tried to get into my car while I was drugged, driving alone, and vulnerable. I was furious that Jenna had put me in such danger. I made the decision right then that I would never speak to her again, and I never did. The moral of this story is simple, and it is the only reason I am still here. Always trust your instincts. Your gut feelings are always right, even when your mind cannot process what is happening.